Welcome to Photos and Travel, a show that introduces you to fascinating places around the world. Please welcome our host and tour guide, Jonathan Van Bilsen.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Photos and Travel, where we bring the world to your doorstep. Today we're visiting the warm climate of the American Southeast. We'll visit South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, discovering historic cities of Charleston and Savannah, and then heading into Florida to visit the quaint towns of Mount Dora and St. Armand. We'll then continue and explore Walt Disney World and finish our adventure with a trip to the Florida Keys. We'll begin our trek right after these messages.
PP Print is excited to offer Port Perry wearables, featuring two great designs. Show your Skoogog pride with apparel and headwear. We have you covered. PP Print, more than just print.
Not all Canadians have the time nor desire to manage their finances, and often that responsibility is up to financial professionals. Our goal is to help Canadian families achieve a happy and successful financial future. Visit us, the McClellan Financial Group of Asante Capital Management.
As I mentioned, we're starting our Southeast American adventure in the historic city of Charleston, South Carolina. I actually flew into Myrtle Beach and drove 2 hours south, arriving at this amazing city with such a vast history. An hour outside of Charleston is beautiful Brook Green Gardens. It's a great place to stroll around acres and acres of manicured lawns, fantastic flower gardens, and dozens of sculptures. Brook Green was once a huge plantation, but the gardens are all that remain. I did find it interesting to learn that rice was the main crop farmed during the pre-Civil War era. As I entered Charleston, I quickly discovered it as a great city for walking. Seeing a vast variety of antebellum homes, many of which had been restored to their former glory, was very interesting. There are many churches, most of which are built on a grandiose scale. The Cathedral of St. John the Baptist is the mother church of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Charleston, and it's known for its stained glass windows. The brownstone exterior facade has been made to look like brick, giving this church a unique appearance. Charleston was one of America's busiest ports back in the day, but it's better remembered for Fort Sumter, where the Civil War allegedly began. One of the most photographed spots in Charleston is the famous Painted Ladies or Rainbow Row, as the area is also known. It is a stretch of large historic homes painted in a variety of pastel colors. Continuing on to Savannah is a pretty drive, especially if you stay off the interstate highways. Small farmhouses dot the countryside, and quaint villages appear around bends. Beaufort is worth a stop, as it's a seaside town with a spectacular beach. Unique shops and eateries are found among all the many souvenir haunts. This is Boone Hall Plantation, built in 1681. A tour of the house includes the private residence of the current owners, and most of the furniture dates back to the Civil War era. The gardens are well maintained, but a stroll along the slave cabins is an eye-opener for the way history has recorded the coexistence between African Americans and European descendants who settled the area. Boone Hall is one of America's oldest working plantations and has been continuously growing crops for more than 300 years. Another plantation, Middleton Place, is also worth a visit. It has been in existence for over 250 years. It was planned by an architect who designed most of the gardens at France's Versailles Palace, and has the distinction of being known as America's oldest landscape gardens. There are 2 lakes with unique outbuildings and many giant oak trees. Watch your step though, as you may run into a gator or two along your trek. Once you reach Savannah, be prepared to be immersed in history. Large antebellum houses line most of the streets in the old city. Many have been restored and are worth a visit. Davenport House may be the most famous as it's fully restored, but my favorite was the Harper Folks House with its interesting history. The house was built in 1842 and was neglected for many years. It was in a less desirable part of the city, and there was little interest in anyone purchasing it. The house went up for auction, and in 1939, Alida Harper, a Georgia socialite, purchased it for a mere $9,000, about $200,000 in today's economy. Although not for sale, the property is currently valued at $5 million. Savannah has a pedestrian area known as the City Market, where one can find many eateries, boutiques, and of course pecan shops. It's next to Broughton Street, the main shopping street of the city. A stroll along the waterside opens up an entire new world with dozens of restaurants, bars, souvenir shops, and clothing boutiques, keeping visitors busy for hours on end. Charleston and Savannah are two amazing cities to visit, especially if you're thinking of fall or spring getaway. Temperatures can vary, but September and April tend to hit the mid-20s or low 80s if you think in Fahrenheit. Before we visit Walt Disney World, we're going to spend some time in two quaint towns, definitely worth visiting. The first is Mount Dora, located about an hour north of Orlando. The drive from Orlando to Mount Dora is pleasant. Winding roads lined with trees take you on a leisurely trek, passing horse farms and century homes. For those in a rush, there is a new toll highway, but your GPS will allow you to bypass it if you so choose. Once you arrive in Mount Dora, simply park your car, as the entire town is within walking distance. With a population of 13,000, this small, picturesque village has several streets lined with unique clothing boutiques, art shops, and restaurants. Nestled on Lake Dora, it's a fantastic escape from the hustle and bustle of Mickey Mouse Land and other Florida attractions. I found it very quaint with extremely friendly shop owners. Be sure to keep the Florida sun in mind and wear a hat and plenty of sunscreen. Start your visit with a tasty lunch in either one flight up, which has a balcony on the second floor overlooking Donnelly Street, the main thoroughfare, or enjoy a tasty soup and sandwich combo at Let's Do Lunch, also located on Donnelly Street. Both are great, but there are numerous other eateries as well. If you want a more formal lunch, make your way toward the lake about 3 blocks away and enjoy a wonderful meal on the porch of the Lakeside Inn. Along with good food and picturesque views, it's also a hotel which was built in 1921. Complete with all the charm of yesteryear, a visit to the lobby and bar is like being whisked back in time to an era of high society and post-World War I freedom. A few steps from the Lakeside Inn stands a lighthouse and a gazebo, both of which overlook a wildlife refuge. There are fish and birds and even small alligators, or caiman. The dress shops on Donnelly Street feature designer patterns, many of which are local. The art galleries all show work from local resident artists, including a second-story shop owned by artist Bev Neal, who along with showing you her work is also a local historian, explaining the history of Mount Dora, complete with photos dating back to the early 20th century. When you've thoroughly exhausted your stay and head back to your home base, albeit Orlando or Tampa, there's another unique town worthy of a day adventure. St. Armand's is located outside of Sarasota on Florida's Gulf Coast. Like Mount Dora, it's another must-see destination, especially if you want to escape the tourist bustle for which Florida is so famous. A little more popular than Mount Dora, St. Armand's is quite a bit larger. The central part of the city, which caters to tourists, is divided into 4 quadrants, each of which centers around a fountain. Of course, the first thing I did after parking my car was to visit Kilwin's, a well-known old-fashioned confectionery chain which sells chocolates, ice cream, and handmade sweets. A good cup of coffee with a waffle cone overflowing with New Orleans pralines and cream is a must, especially after sitting in your car for a while. Depending on your tastes, the shops of St. Armand should fulfill everyone's desire. There are many clothing stores, most of which cater to sunshine patterns of brightly colored floral designs. Men's shops carry the latest fashions to look your best on the golf course or on the beach. I enjoyed leisurely strolling through the numerous art galleries and seeing the work of local artists displayed everywhere. There's an amazing Robert Weiland gallery. Weiland is a marine artist most noted in Toronto for his wall mural of the dolphins on the exterior of the Redpath Sugar Museum and associated grain elevators along Toronto's waterfront. Trekking through Georgia and South Carolina certainly was a great experience. And visiting the towns of Mount Dora and St. Armand's was a fantastic way to relax and discover some unique treasures of Florida. When we come back, we'll explore Walt Disney World and make our way to Key West, stopping at a very strange castle along the way.
At Voss, your independent grocer, it's all about hometown living and shopping. Owned and operated by Terry and Christine Voss, their newly renovated Port Perry store carries many local items to support our town and its residents.
Pet Value has a fleet of services to help you and your pets live their very best lives. Visit Pet Value in Port Perry and discover a world of expertise, friendly staff, and everything you need for your pets. Pet Value, your pet, your store.
Welcome back. As I mentioned, we'll continue our trip of the Southeast with a visit to one of the world's most entertaining complexes, Walt Disney World. And to think, it all started with a mouse. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, and so began the magic envisioned by Walt Disney more than 90 years ago. Today's program covers my 5th trip to Disney World, and I don't know why, but the magic was stronger than ever. I recall my very first visit sometime in the 70s when the Magic Kingdom was the only park in existence. Being swept through the ghouls and goblins of the haunted mansions was offset by the bellowing bears in the Country Bear Jamboree. Watching the animatronics in the Hall of Presidents was mind-boggling, and seeing pirates come to life in the Pirates of the Caribbean was breathtaking. I cannot say enough about my first visit and was equally thrilled this time around. Disney knows how to do it and they do it right. It's not the cheapest locale in Florida to visit, but if you want perfection, you'll find it here. Besides, it's almost an obligation to take your children and grandchildren the way our parents and grandparents took us. The best and easiest way to live the experience is to stay in one of the more 25 magical resorts. When you arrive at the airport, a Disney coach whisks you to your hotel. I had to wait less than 10 minutes and check-in was very fast and simple. You see, Disney lets you pre-arrange a number of things. Before you leave home, buy your tickets. This is a must or you'll have nothing but headaches. I was excited when I received an email indicating that my wristbands were ready to load up. One click and it took me to all my reservation details. The next step was to select some of the attractions I wanted to do. You can choose up to 3 per day at specific times, which means a very short, if any, lineup. You can switch on the fly while you're there, but some of the more popular attractions, such as a new Avatar exhibit, will quickly fill up. You always have the option of not using the Disney Genie system and waiting in line, but why bother if you can avoid it? You can also make dinner reservations before you go, and I would suggest you do. You may want to change your mind when you're there, but Disney Florida caters to 60,000 people a day, and they all get hungry. What I ended up doing was eating a good breakfast, having ice cream for lunch, and eating dinner around 5. That way I avoided many crowds and lineups. There are 4 parks: Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Animal Kingdom, and Hollywood Studios. Plan on doing 1 per day. There's also Disney Springs, which is a great shopping area and eating area with the largest Disney store in the world. I found that getting up at 6:30 each day, being in the restaurant for 7:30, and on the bus at 8:15 would get me to the park of the day by 9, which is the opening time. I had planned to go to the most popular attractions first to beat the rush. Each park has a great evening fireworks display, and for Animal Kingdom and Hollywood Studios, I would recommend pre-booking with Disney Genie. People flock to them, otherwise you could be waiting in excess of an hour. Hollywood Studios is the refurbished Disney MGM Studios from years ago. Star Wars has a massive attraction and lots of visibility. The Indiana Jones exhibit has not changed, but is still as thrilling as ever. A Wrinkle in Time is quite unique, and I found I had enough time to visit Disney Springs for a few hours of shopping and eating. Another great benefit is there's free Wi-Fi in every hotel and everywhere within the park. All of your itinerary, planned events, reservations, etc. are all on your smartphone. Simply put your phone into airplane mode, turn your Wi-Fi on, and it won't cost you a cent. You can make any changes to your itinerary on the go, and yes, even answer those important emails from back home. The Magic Kingdom has changed little over the years. The Jungle Cruise ride still takes you through fierce animatronic creatures, and to climb up the Swiss Family Treehouse remains an adventure. I sang along with tiki birds, watched a massive parade, and did a handful of other attractions. Animal Kingdom features an animal safari through the jungle, where you'll encounter real giraffes, rhinos, hippos, and elephants, and not to mention a few dozen other animals. The new Avatar exhibit is spectacular, but be aware, lineups are long if you do not use the Disney Genie app. I still like Epcot and the 11 different countries in the World Showcase. Lunch in France, dinner in Germany, and a snack in Morocco is the perfect way to spend a day. There are several new exhibits which are worth seeing. In the evenings, do not miss the fireworks in the Magic Kingdom, the Rivers of Light in Animal Kingdom, Fantasmic in Hollywood, and Illuminations in Epcot. There's no need to carry cash, as the wristband will allow you to charge everything from food to souvenirs, and it doubles as a room key. And yes, you can impose restrictions for kids or husbands. I continued south, bypassing Miami, but stopping at the Coral Castle near the town of Homestead. The castle, constructed by Edward Leeds Kalnin, a Latvian immigrant, was built to entice his sweetheart to marry him. The structure, made of numerous large stones, each weighing several tons, sculpted into a variety of shapes, includes walls, tables, chairs, a water fountain, and a sundial. Coral Castle is noted for legends surrounding its creation that claim it was built single-handedly by Leeds Calnan, using reverse magnetism or supernatural abilities to move and carve the stones. It took more than 28 years to build and was finished in 1920. Visiting will take a few hours, but the uniqueness of the site makes it well worthwhile. My adventure continued south for my road trip along Highway 1, which winds through the many Florida Keys and provides an interesting and picturesque route. The first thing you need to know is it's a good 2.5-hour drive from Key Largo at the top to Key West at the bottom, and that's without any stops. The second tip is about the cost of fuel. Gasoline in the Keys tends to be much higher than the rest of the state. If you want to avoid crowds, May or early June are nice, albeit warmer and more humid. To me, when you're sitting on a beach feeling the warm ocean waves caress your toes, the temperature matters little. Besides, air conditioning is everywhere. Check the weather before you go, though, because June is also the start of hurricane season, which in itself might be a unique experience, but not necessarily one you want to witness. The first key you come to is Key Largo. I'm not sure how famous it would be if Humphrey Bogart had not chased Lauren Bacall into the Caribbean Cafe in the movie named after the key. It is a cool place to hang out and experience the culture, especially if you're into snorkeling, fishing, or a multitude of ocean sports. A little further along the highway is the Key of Isla Morado. This area is a bit more peaceful than Key Largo, and a great place to spend the night. The warm Atlantic waves gently lap the white sandy shores, and the restaurants are plentiful. If you like Italian, there's well-known Di Giorgio's, famous for its seafood risotto. If Italian is not your thing, there are dozens of restaurants featuring seafood, meat, or vegetarian options. Isla Morado is also home to the Theater of the Sea, a smaller, scaled-down version of the big SeaWorld attraction in Orlando. Stopping here on your adventure south gives you a break from driving through mostly single-lane traffic, which can be heavy at times. As you venture south, you see less of the tourist stuff and more peace and quiet. If you have the time and are so inclined, take a detour from the highway and drive through some of the subdivisions where wealthy Floridians live or where snowbirds rent oceanside abodes. Houses tend to run anywhere from $750,000 for a small bungalow to $4 million and up for large palatial properties on the water. Rents are anywhere from $3,000 a week and up, and that of course is in US dollars. To me, the final destination was the best and well worth the trip. The last key, Key West, is totally different from the rest of the Keys. I would say it's very similar to New Orleans in style, albeit on a smaller scale, complete with an above-ground cemetery. I've been to Florida a dozen or so times, but this was my first trek to the lower Keys, and I was really glad I did it. There are a number of quaint boutique hotels, but I'd suggest finding one as close to Duval Street as possible. Duval is the main drag, and being able to walk there from your hotel is a bonus. Parking in Key West is next to impossible to find, and when you eventually locate a spot, you'll want to leave your car for the duration of your stay. I would say 2 days is probably enough for most people, and the best way to get a feel for the town is using the trolley service. This gives you an overview of the area, but also provides knowledgeable commentary. For the less touristy types, a walk along Duval Street can take the better part of an afternoon, especially if you stop frequently for a cooling refreshment. There are art stores displaying the work of local artists and artisans, as well as clothing boutiques which cater to the summer sunshine theme with their brightly colored fabrics. Also, many souvenir shops where you can obtain a collection of fridge magnets or tea towel souvenirs for your loved ones back home. Most people spend as much time in bars and restaurants as they do in the shops. Cuban food is really popular, and why not? Key West is less than 150 kilometers or 90 miles from Havana. The beverage of choice is mojito, mainly because Ernest Hemingway lived in Key West for a while, and Floridians have adopted him as their patron saint. A cool place to visit in town is Hemingway's house, which is open to the public every day. If you're a beach person, head down to Himlo Beach and soak up the sun. Remember to splatter yourself with sunscreen and wear a hat because the sun will fry you within 10 minutes. There's also Boca Chica, a clothing optional beach. However, there are many others for the more modest travelers. Whether you fly or drive, take a cruise ship or go by bike, Key West, Florida is a must on your bucket list. The history in the Deep South is amazing, and exploring southern plantations was fantastic. Visiting Walt Disney World made me feel like a kid again, and dining and exploring small towns in Key West was quite an adventure. And what about that Coral Castle? Unbelievable. For Photos and Travel, I'm Jonathan Van Bilsen. It's been my pleasure to be your tour guide today, and I look forward to our next adventure. If you enjoyed this program, please click the subscribe button and you'll never miss an episode.
What's happening in Skugog, news and lifestyle, changes in business, and all the entertainment information you'll ever need. Plus, each edition has a new Photos and Travel article. Look for your next copy in your mailbox.
Autumn is here and the pandemic is winding down. There may be things you want to forget about recent years, but we're here to help you remember the good news while keeping you informed along the way. We are thestandardnewspaper.ca.